With the 2025 NFL trade deadline in the books, we are back to focusing on your Buffalo Bills and what's going on the football field. On today's show, we have a bunch of major news when it comes to injuries, roster moves, what's going on with the Miami Dolphins leading up into this week, and Brandon Beane also spoke on the Bills' inactivity at the trade deadline. Let's just hop right into it because there's so much to talk about here, and you guys aren't going to want to hear this, but James Cook injured, one of the Bills' best football players on the roster, one of the Bills' most productive football players this season, going down with an injury, suffering an ankle injury against Kansas City this past week, and he was on the DNP list when the Bills' injury report came out on Wednesday. Did not practice, and his game status is certainly up in the air for Week 10 against Miami. Now, how did this injury go down? I was scouring Twitter looking for the Bills' investigative injury journalists out there. Shout out Banged Up Bills, Thigh Doctor, and all those good guys out there. And they came to the conclusion that this hip drop tackle, which is illegal, by the way, ended up getting James Cook kind of folded up on. You see the ankle right there, not really looking like it's in the right direction. And this looks like kind of a medial sprain. Cook did not end up coming out of the game against Kansas City here, so that's good news that he wasn't ended up not going to the locker room and scaring Bills fans when the game was going on. This just came up in the middle of this week, and he's not practicing on Wednesday. We'll see what his game status looks like, and if he's not going to play, it really sucks because he's having an amazing season so far. I mean, everybody was talking about the touchdown numbers from James Cook last year where he had 16 on the ground, and look at this. He's already on pace for similar numbers this season. Already 7 touchdowns on the ground. Is averaging one of the best yards per carry numbers in all of football right now, nearly 6 yards per tote on the ground. He is nearly at 1,000 yards through 8 games this season, man. He has been awesome. And it's not like he's just had these amazing blocking lanes. He has, right? The Bills' run blocking has been great. But James Cook has even been exceeding what people and the numbers and the metrics and the nerds are expecting of him to do. He is number 1 in the National Football League in terms of rushing yards over expected with 221. So 221 of those 867 yards are not expected to be earned by James Cook. And he's number 1 as well in rushing yards over expected per attempt. So he's hella efficient as well. The Bills like to run him a lot, but he's doing a lot when he gets the ball in his hands. Some more nerd stats for James Cook here just to show you guys how good he's actually been and what kind of loss it would be if he's not able to go. He's number 1 in success rate on the ground this year, number 1 in yards per game, number 2 in yards per rush, number 5 in lowest stuff rate as well. So he's not getting stuffed behind the line of scrimmage. Good job by the Bills' offensive line getting a push at the line of scrimmage. And number 5 in EPA per rush as well. That's all. He's doing all this despite teams knowing the Bills are going to run the football. They're loading boxes at the 6th highest rate against Buffalo in the entire NFL. Over half of the looks that he sees comes with an 8-man loaded box. James Cook is extremely talented. But this is an ankle injury. This is something that could be re-aggravated. We don't want James Cook to be not 100% heading into the Bills' most important stretch of the season, the last 5 games or so, and into the playoffs. So Banged Up Bills did say on Twitter that he actually thinks that he sits this week against Miami. I don't think it would be the biggest deal in the world if we didn't see James Cook against the Dolphins. I would hope the Bills could go out there and get a win without him, but this is a guy who I want to see continue to stockpile these major stats, these major box scores, and at the end of the season have nearly a 1,500-yard rushing year. With that being said, we're going to talk more Bills injuries in just a moment, but this is why you subscribe to the channel. We are almost at our next milestone as well of 8,000 subs. Thank you to everybody who has shown support to me and the Bills Breakdown since we've taken over full-time coverage here at Chat Sports. What you guys get is what you see. Free Bills videos every single day. When we hear Bills news, injury news, trade rumors, well, that stuff's over now. But anything that's going on around Buffalo, you guys are going to see a video from us here at the Bills Breakdown. So subscribe and turn your notifications on so you're always first to see our videos when they drop. All right, more from the Wednesday injury report here for the Bills. A lot of guys did not practice. A very extensive injury report here, and Joey Bosa headlines it with a wrist injury. Now, this is an injury that kind of came up against the Carolina Panthers the week before Kansas City's game, and he ended up re-aggravating it against the Chiefs there. We saw a video of him kind of falling to the ground and banging his wrist, then end up coming up holding it. He didn't end up leaving the game, which is good news there, but definitely taking some precautionary measures with him not practicing on Wednesday. Now, another name that's on the defensive line, as the Bills not only lost Michael Hoyt and Ed Oliver, and now Joey Bosa is not practicing, but AJ Epenesa going down with a concussion here. Now, it seems like there's delayed symptoms going on with this concussion as he just got added to the injury report and did not practice on Wednesday. He did not see any missed action against Kansas City, but this is also the second concussion for AJ Epenesa in his NFL career, so not good news there. Not really looking likely that he'll be ready to go for Week 10. Taron Johnson, man, continues to not practice with that groin injury. Missed Week 9's action against Kansas City, and this is something that absolutely is going to need to be shored up if the Bills want to have their best unit out there. He's one of their better run defenders. He's obviously one of the best nickel corners in the NFL, and it's unfortunate that this groin injury for him continues to linger. Daquan Jones with the calf injury. We heard from Sean McDermott that he was going to practice in some capacity this week. We don't know if this is a setback or more precautionary measures with his calf here, but it's not good that the Bills' defensive line has as many injuries as it does, and it's just not good heading into this next week. Shaq Thompson, another injury that we did not see action for in the Week 9 matchup against Kansas City, and this is unfortunate that they do not have him ready to go right now because he's been one of the best coverage linebackers in all of football. Not only number one on the Bills, but nearly number one in the NFL per PFF so far this year. So he's still dealing with that hamstring. Want him to be 100%. He did not practice on Wednesday either. Now, coming up next, we're going to get into some more Bills injury news because that's not where the injury report stopped. Yes, there were guys who didn't practice, but there's also names that were limited as well. We'll get into the Dolphins injury report, and then Brandon Beane speaks on the trade deadline and the lack of moves that the Bills did make. They did make some roster moves, though, which we'll close out today's show with. First, though, I got to tell you guys about these awesome deals. These Bills shirts that are on sale right now. This Pro Bowl one, I like the design on the back there. This whited out Josh jersey is pretty cool as well. All these and more at chatsports.com/Buffalo sale. This retro look is pretty cool as well. What about Josh diving for the pylon in the snow against San Francisco back in 2024? These are just a couple of my favorite looks, but there's so many more options. Tons of sizes available, and these are all on discount. Chatsports.com/Buffalo sale to get yourself some fresh Bills gear on the low today. All right, so Wednesday injury report stuff for some guys who were limited in practice. And the Bills defense just can't catch a break here. Christian Benford dealing with a groin injury. He was limited on Wednesday in the precursor to Week 10. He's been dealing with a groin injury earlier this season, so we'll see if this is something that was re-aggravated or just a classic rest day here for the Bills' top corner. Terrell Bernard going on limited here with the ankle injury that's harbored him over the past, basically the entire season, to be honest with you guys here. Not going to be good news if the Bills are down not only Shaq Thompson, but also Terrell Bernard as well. And then finally, we had Joshua Palmer with the ankle injury. He continues to linger there, but week to week, Sean McDermott said he'd be practicing this week. He made good on his promise there, and he is limited. Hopefully, with the Bills' lack of activity at the trade deadline, specifically at the wide receiver spot, he is ready to go, and we don't see any more aggravations or re-injuries there with that ankle for Palmer. Now, we see this extensive injury report for the Bills here. A lot of guys not practicing, a couple of guys limited as well. You're playing against the Dolphins this week. Is this a situation where you just went through a really physical game with Kansas City and you're playing a lesser opponent this week, and Sean McDermott is just giving this team and a lot of guys a little bit of rest? A lot of the top performers on the Buffalo Bills are on this Bills injury report. So this could be a situation where he's giving a bunch of guys some rest, but it could also be a situation where the Bills are straight up really banged up here heading into Week 10. Speaking of names who are banged up heading into this season, Gabe Davis apparently getting close to coming back to practice and getting on the football field for the Buffalo Bills. Another word that was used was he is progressing. Remember, he signed to the Bills practice squad on September 2nd, blew out his knee last year in Jacksonville, but again, I say it again, the Bills did not make a move at wide receiver. So could this be a reinforcement they have waiting in the pipeline? It seems that way based on the way that Sean McDermott's talking about him. He's going to be out there on the field for the Buffalo Bills at some point whenever he is ready. Now for the Miami Dolphins injury report here. A lot of names once again, but the one that you have to see that's the most noteworthy is Chop Robinson. Their star edge rusher there is still in concussion protocol and did not practice for Miami on Wednesday. So that's major news there for a Dolphins team that doesn't necessarily have a great defense, but there are some solid players on that pass rush. They just traded away Jalen Phillips as well. So if they're down their two top pass rushers here in Week 10, the Bills are going to have a pretty easy job in pass pro and probably running the ball as well. You also have Rasul Douglas there, the former Buffalo Bills corner. He did not practice on Wednesday as well with an injury to his lower body. So we'll see if he's not ready to go. The Dolphins, we know, have one of the worst secondaries in the league as well. Look, I could be wrong, guys. We didn't do a full in-depth game preview as we normally have done in the past few weeks, but I don't expect much of a game here between Miami and Buffalo. The Bills are just way more well-oiled of a team. The Dolphins are in disarray. They fired their GM, but they're keeping the coach just for fun, it seems, at this point. It feels like an uninspired football team. Tua is not very good, and if the Bills keep this close, it just has to be because they're not on their A game. This is a letdown spot, and I'd be very surprised if that was the case. With that being said, I'm looking ahead. I know it's probably stupid to be doing that at this point. If you want the Bills to be healthy for the most important stretch of the season, that is the playoff run. Prove it. Go down below, hit that thumbs up icon, manifest good vibes for this Buffalo Bills team heading into the rest of the season and hopefully the postseason as well. All right, Brandon Beane here. We'll close out today's show-ish with him saying that my job is not to be reckless when it comes to the trade deadline and making moves and sending away draft capital and what have you. He said it's not fantasy football. A lot of Bills fans, myself included, were pretty upset with the lack of activity done by the Bills front office here in terms of adding talent. At the trade deadline, obviously, the Bills media members asked Brandon Beane about this at Wednesday's practice, and here's what he had to say on the Bills making no moves. He said, "Believe me, I went home as mad as any other fan. I wanted to do things, but as I said earlier, I cannot force someone to trade me a player. It takes two." Also said later, "But I also believe in our team. I do believe we can win a championship with this roster." I'm kind of being forced to believe that the Bills can win a championship with this roster at this point. Look, Brandon Beane also said that they called on a lot of names that were out there in trade rumor mills, but he said many of them were unavailable. And for the guys that maybe teams were willing to deal, the asking price ended up being too high. Now, I'm not the guy who's going to sit here and act like hoarding draft picks is something that I would do if I'm the Buffalo Bills and in the situation that they're in, contending for a Super Bowl, wanting to do whatever it takes to surround Josh with as much talent as it takes to do so. So I would have probably gone out there and sent the 2 picks away that it took for Rashid Shaheed to go to Seattle. It didn't end up happening, but we'll see what the Bills can do here with the roster that they have in place. It doesn't help when they're really, really injured in some key spots as well. Would have been awesome if they went out there and traded for a guy like Harrison Phillips to shore up the interior of that defensive line with all the injuries that they have, or an edge rusher as well, because they were involved in some rumors toward the end of the deadline here. There were rumored talks. Tim Graham of The Athletic tweeted out that we need to keep an eye on Deebo Samuel or Von Miller from the Washington Commanders there. I think either one of those 2 moves would have been a disaster, and just 2 names I wouldn't have given up draft capital for, if you ask me. And then Calvin Ridley was a Twitter thing. I don't know how credible the source was. Maybe they were talking with Tennessee. Maybe they weren't. But again, they made no moves. They seem confident going into the rest of the season and the playoff run with this crew. Sean McDermott said on the receiving group that or maybe it was Brandon Beane who said it, but he feels confident in that group. He lumps the tight ends in there. He said, running backs, aren't they receivers too? Clearly they wanted to add at receiver, and no deal seemed like it was available from their point of view. With that being said, what do you guys think? Should the Bills have made a trade at the deadline? Why for yes and for no? Very simple question before we get out of here today. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. All right, a couple Bills roster moves here before we wrap up. Fidarian Mathis signed to the 53-man roster, so there's the move that they made along the interior of the defensive line. Remember, they brought up Jordan Phillips as well. He had a wrist thing pop up, even though he practiced in full on Wednesday. Kingsley Jonathan was signed to the practice squad here for some more depth along the edge. Corey Couch signed to the practice squad at DB, and Jimmy Charlo, the linebacker out of Army, he ended up being released. That will do it for today's show. Give me a follow over on Twitter for even more Bills news. I know it was a loaded show today. Lots going on. Hope you guys stuck with us. If you made it to the end of today's show, type of Go Bills down in the comment section. I'll be heartened to shout out all of you guys who do so. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel as well. YouTube.com/Bills News. We'll keep you guys tapped in with everything you need to know the rest of the Bills season and into the postseason as well. We'll also be live on Sunday for Bills versus Dolphins. We'll see you guys in the next video. And as always, let's go, Buffalo.